Okay, just to bring you up to speed on the status of the post office, the U.S. Postal Service was created by Benjamin Franklin in Philadelphia before this country was a country. It is written into the Constitution. It's in Article 1, Section 8. Congress may appropriate funds for postal roads and post offices. It operates independent of any government money whatsoever. I suppose you could argue that there's some government money in that the post offices buildings and whatnot do not pay taxes, do not pay property taxes, but that would be true if it was FedEx or UPS, if they just cut a deal with local communities, as so often they do, or if it was a nonprofit, which it is. And back in 2006, during the George W. Bush administration, when the Postal Service, which is, by the way, the largest unionized employer in the United States, and also the largest vehicle fleet owner in the United States. In 2005, 2006 was the legislation. In 2005, you will recall, and you can go back and just find these old news articles, the Postal Service was planning on electrifying a large chunk of that huge fleet. They were making good money. They were paying their employees well. You know, they're unionized employees. They get good pay, decent benefits, good pension. And they were going to convert a large number of these postal, delivery trucks, the ones that they do, when they come around to your house and drop off the mail, to electric vehicles. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of them, which would have given a huge jumpstart to the electric vehicle industry. So the fossil fuel industry and FedEx and UPS all got together and said, we've got to destroy the post office. And so the Republicans passed legislation in 2006. It was called the Postal Accountability legislation. Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act is the actual name. And which said that the post office had to set aside $5 billion a year, every year, forever, to pay for the retirement health care costs. This is assuming that we don't ever go to single-payer health care, right? To pay for the retirement health care costs of postal workers 75 years in the future. In other words, this is just a way of locking up $5 billion a year from the post office so that they could not use that money to buy electric vehicles, and so that they might have to start cutting the wages and benefits of their unionized employees. And it's been quite successful. The post office has been losing money ever since 2006, although they're still, they are still not taking any government funds. So all of this in the context of, UPS and FedEx want, as every company does. I mean, the whole privatization thing is, hey, let's give a road to an Australian company that runs toll roads. Well, let's give them an existing road. It's a government asset. Let's give UPS and FedEx the government assets of post offices all over the country. This is a huge give. So on the line with us is Charles Sauer. Charles is the libertarian economist and president of the Market Institute. He's author of the new book, Profit Motive, What Drives the Things We Do, out yesterday. Actually, it was out a couple weeks ago, I think. MarketInstitute.org is the website. You can tweet him at Charles Sauer, S-A-U-E-R. Charles, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Tom.
So given the background and the story here, and that the post office has been part of our commons literally since the founding of our republic and before, why would anybody want to privatize the post office?
Well, I mean, I don't think you want to keep any business around just because it was historically there, or we would still have people wandering the streets trying to light electric lamps with their gas torches, and we would have chambermaids trying to take out chamber pots from places where they aren't. But where you and I do kind of agree on this issue is the kind of the cronyism angle, where it's really FedEx and UPS and a couple of the other companies. I don't think it's as much that they want to hurt the USPS or the Postal Service, but realistically, I think that they're going after Amazon and trying to grab a lot of the growing market, which is the package delivery. But I mean, USPS also has a monopoly, which I think you oppose monopolies. I think you've opposed different monopolies on first-class mail. So I think that even you would likely be for at least opening up that monopoly and allowing other people to carry mail as well. I don't think a monopoly is good in any industry.
I don't think that would work. What you have is UPS and FedEx using the post office for last mile services. The post office is at a discount, providing to them the ability to deliver things into rural areas, number one. And number two, I would say it's not really a monopoly. I mean, there is, I can't tell you the number of times that I have taken a letter or a contract or whatever would normally be first-class mail and stuck it into a FedEx or a UPS, overnight delivery envelope or even a two-day delivery envelope. That is arguably first-class mail. Now, technically, that's against the law, but nobody's enforcing that. So, to say that they have a monopoly, nah, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, that's kind of funny. I mean, there's nobody necessarily enforcing that unless you're coming down to having a big business transaction or you are trying to actually accomplish a business transaction. And then that isn't just a made-up monopoly. That's a realistic monopoly.
No, we used to have, when I owned an ad agency in Atlanta, we had a contract with FedEx, and because we would send, proofs to our customers. We would send, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that an ad agency needs to physically transmit. And, typically that would have gone by U.S. first-class mail. We used FedEx instead.
Let me give you another area where we agree, though, and this is one of those things where, the cronyism gets mixed up with Republicans, or it's actually called a Baptist and bootlegger dilemma, where the bootleggers are kind of FedEx and UPS, and they're not going to be the sympathetic role in here. But the Baptists here are the Republicans and the small government, which I usually side with. So they make this privatization claim on the USPS, but realistically, by having them fund their retirement 70 years in advance, it's just a way, as you pointed out, to kind of undermine the USPS. Now, I think the free market will eventually, create their own privatization of the USPS. As you pointed out, businesses or people are currently moving away from using some of the first-class mail services and going around that. I think laws will change to do that. But, as prices keep increasing and therefore lowering margins for companies, you will see more and more automation of services and people figuring out the last mile. I mean,
but here's the problem, Charles.
Has heard of the drone services.
Right, but here's the problem. It's all well and good for me as a businessman, with access to money, to say, oh yeah, I use FedEx instead of the Postal Service all the time, or UPS. I prefer UPS. It's a unionized company. FedEx is not. In fact, they're aggressively anti-union. But the reality is that I'm part of the elite, essentially, as a business person, as are you. And it's really a wonderful thing that anybody in our country who has 50 cents, which you can typically panhandle these days, that anybody who has 50 cents can write a letter to somebody anywhere in the country, in many cases anywhere in the world, for something close to 50 cents, and just drop it in a mailbox and know reliably that it will get delivered. I mean, our post office does this incredible thing. And if it was put into private hands, where instead of delivery, a service to the citizens of the country, the number one priority was profit for UPS or FedEx or whatever other company may come along to do this, I don't think that it would be 50 cents anymore. And I don't think that it would be accessible to average people.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard you say something that I felt like was you reading a talking point. But the fact is, everybody can do that now, and that's they can do it for free, and it's because of the innovation of the internet. And we can not just get something across the country for 50 cents, but we can send something worldwide. We can post it for everybody.
Charles, again, that's an elitist argument. You've got almost a third of Americans don't have access to the internet.
There's local libraries. There are ways that people can get access to the internet. The internet is almost everywhere now. I mean,
it's everywhere among people who have money.
It's close.
I mean, how many people can afford to spend
$100
$100 a month? I mean, I realize the internet in Europe costs $20 a month, but in the United States, because we have these for-profit companies and we don't outlaw monopoly in the United States, people are spending $80 to $120 a month for their internet service. That's nuts. Who can afford that?
Well, that is nuts. They need to call me up and help them negotiate their rates.
Okay.
The point is that that's ridiculous. But you can go down to your local library and actually mail an envelope. And so when you say at the country's founding, people still had to go down to the post office to mail their packages. Now maybe the delivery is to the individual mailbox. But the fact is that shouldn't be a monopoly. UPS, FedEx, and everybody should be able
Charles.
to.
Is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Sorry, we ran right over the break here. Charles Sauer, marketinstitute.org, his new book, Profit Motive. Thanks, Charles.